So we'll go ahead and this will be the last kind of geometry IXL video for a little bit. But we'll take a look at IXL U.4, and this is looking at the area sectors. And remember, a sector is kind of like a piece of pizza. It's only part of the circle. Um, and so what we're going to do with this is, because it's just a part or a fraction of the circle, we're going to have a fraction times the area of a circle. So there are a couple different ways you can write this. You can write it as x, whoops, helps if I turn on my pen. You can write it as x over 360 times a, where a is the area of the circle, or a little more practically, x over 360, and actually write out that area of the circle as pi r squared. And in this case, x is the central angle, or the angle of the arc. Whichever one they happen to give you. Uh, Hopefully you can use my words to help decipher what all this says, but it's the central angle or the arc measure. So here we're told the arc measure, in this case that goes with the shaded area, this arc is 180 degrees, so that's what we'll plug in for x. So we've got 180 over 360, and then I'm going to use this times pi r squared because that's more practical. So times pi, and then we want to know the radius. And it tells us that the radius is 7 feet. So we've got times 7 squared. And now we're ready to go ahead and calculate that. And we'll figure out the answer. Notice that it wants to give an exact answer in simplest form. So that means we need to keep the pi symbol and not use decimals. And so 180 over 360, if you type that into a scientific calculator, you'll see 180 over 360 is 1/2. So this equals 1/2. Leave pi just as that symbol, kind of like you would leave a variable. And then 7 squared is 49. Multiply the numbers, so 1/2 times 49, or 49 over 1, is 49 halves, and keep the pi. And so that is going to end up being our answer. We'll go ahead and type that in. We'll type the fraction 49 halves pi. And there we go. What do they give us next? Oh, this next one is the exact same problem. So maybe pause the video, go ahead, try this on your own, and then check your answer with what I do. Okay, so hopefully you tried that on your own. Now we'll go ahead again, use our formula. I'm just going to stick with the x over 360 times pi r squared. Just remember that that's the fraction times the area of the circle, pi r squared. X is our arc measure, so specifically the one that goes with the shaded area. If they happen to give you the arc measure for the non-shaded area, you would do 360 minus whatever that was. But I don't know if IXL gets that tricky. But we've got 180 over 360 times pi, and then our radius is 10, so times 10 squared. 180 over 360 is the same thing as 1/2 times pi, leave pi as pi, times 100, and then multiply those numbers. So 1/2 times 100, half of 100 is 50, so our answer is 50 pi. Hit submit, and again we found the area of that sector. Let's see if they give us a more challenging one. Okay, this one is just marginally more challenging, but I know you can definitely do this. I might regret that I don't have a calculator handy here though. So anyways, our formula is x over 360 times pi r squared. Our arc measure is 135, so we've got 135 over 360 times pi r squared, so times 4 squared, 135 over 360. Divides to 3/8. So we've got 3/8 times pi times 16. And again, remember, we want to simplify these numbers. So we've got 3/8 times 16, or 16 over 1, which ends up being 3 times 2 is 6 pi. If you're curious how I got that answer, that would be a great thing to email me about, because it's actually a super handy trick to know with simplifying fractions. You can also just use a calculator to get that answer. Okay, so here they're giving us another similar problem. We'll set it up the same way: x over 360 times pi r squared. So 114 over 360 times pi times 6 squared. And you can go through, kind of simplify that on your own, over 5 times pi. There we go. Let's do one more, see if they give us anything really tricky. Doesn't look like that. So I think you should be good to do some of these on your own. So I'm going to pause the video and do a couple of them. And I know at one point they start to give you the answer for this and we have to work backwards. So I'll get to the point where we have to do that, do one of those examples, and then let you email me with any other questions you've got. These problems where they give us the answer and they want us to find the angle measure. So now we're trying to figure out what this central angle, or what the arc measure is. And so now we're going to use a full-blown equation. So we know the sector area equals x over 360 times the area of a circle, or times pi r squared. And now we're going to have to go backwards and solve for x. So I'm going to substitute what I know. So we're told the area of the sector is 10 pi square miles. So I'm going to substitute 10 pi and then write this side of the equation and plug in the radius. So we keep x as x because that's what we want to find. X over 360 times pi times our radius squared. So times 15 squared. And now we have an equation to go ahead and solve. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that exponent. So we've got 10 pi equals x over 360 times pi times 225. Now I'm going to start working to get x by itself. So, oops, sorry about that. I'm going to, first of all, divide both sides by pi. This one's nice because they just cancel out. So the pi's cancel each other out, completely disappear. And then since they just kind of cancel out and disappear, I'm going to do another thing with that as well. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 225. So divide by 225. So 10 over 225. If you divide both of those by 5, you get 2 over, I think, 75. But I'm going to type that in the calculator and double check. It's 45. Good thing I checked. So you get 2 over 45 equals, now the 225 is canceled out, so it just equals x over 360. Our final step is going to be to multiply both sides by 360. Those cancel out. And now we can type that into a calculator. 2 divided by 45 times 360. And we end up with 16. So we have x equals 16. That would be this arc measure, or the central angle. But here we just get the answer is 16. And There we go. So that should be all the different types of problems that IXL U.4 throws at you. If you see something that we haven't covered or if you've got more questions, please feel free to email me. Have a great rest of your day.